Hello and welcome to Langlit Online. In today's video, we are going to analyze a research paper, and the title of this research paper is Enhancing Language Skills Through Literature, a study by Dr. B. Sushma, that is myself. And the name of this journal is International Journal of Frontiers of English Literature and Patterns of ELT. This is the journal in which this article got published, right? So now we will just see the abstract. As in the previous video of research paper writing on ELT, I have mentioned that we need to write an abstract first. This is the abstract. Abstract is a brief summary of your research paper. What are the main contents of your research paper? You will be focusing on that. So in the abstract, the first few lines, 4 or 5 lines, will be a brief introduction about the topic. The topic is enhancing language skills through literature, a study. So we will talk about language, we will talk about literature in the first few lines. So here I'll just read out. Literature is an effective source of language learning for the learners of English language. It has all the components of language education like grammar, vocabulary, and innovative sentence structures that promote language competency in learners. Literary text provides scope for various interpretations on the issues discussed in the texts. So this is a brief introduction about the topic. Now, speaking skills of students can be improved greatly with the use of literary text in the classroom. So this is the main statement, like how language skills, speaking skills, writing skills can be improved through the help of literary text. So this paper examines the different ways in which literary text can be exploited to promote language expertise in students. So what does this paper do? It just examines how the literary text can be used to promote language expertise in students. So as part of this study, what did we do? The speaking skill, the productive skill of speaking is tested. My research shows that the quality of language used by the experimental group is comparatively better than that of the control group. So, you have two groups. This is the methodology that you have adopted. So, one is the control group and the other one is the experimental group. So, the quality of language used by the experimental group on which the group on which you have conducted the study is better than the control group. This control group was not given any training, but the experimental group was given some kind of training. So this itself shows that if we give proper training to learners, then definitely they will improve their skills, right? So then the paper proves the fact that apart from providing aesthetic pleasure, literary texts have an influence on the learner's use of words, phrases, idiomatic expressions, and culture-specific jargon. This is the observation. This is the finding. And afterwards, this paper also suggests some techniques as to how the skills of students, speaking skills, writing skills can be improved. Now, these are the key words or phrases. What are keywords? The important words in this passage or in this paper which will help us to understand the content better. See, keywords of this abstract are communicative situations, idiomatic expressions, integration of skills. By reading these keywords or phrases, one should understand that this paper is about language. This paper is about literary text and how to pick up the idiomatic expressions and the phrases and the words from the literary text, right? So now this is about abstract and then keywords, right? So now we will move on to the introduction part over here. So what is literature? What is language? How language can be improved through literature? All these things can be written over here. In the present day world, communication in English for various purposes has become very essential. So again, this is a general introduction. So if we have to improve the skills of students, we need to give ample opportunities for the learners to get exposed to the language more. Then the teachers of English language need to create lifelike context so that the learners, through increased use of language, will become proficient in their communication. So this is the general introduction to the topic. And then literature and language. What is the relationship between literature and language? You can give separate side headings like this, and then how language can be learned through literature, and how reading literature will improve your language skills. And when we use the language also, we can write literature, we can create new things, we can write new articles or documents, documentaries, or the other things related to language, right? So now in between you can also use some quotations, like Stopford Brooke, who talks about language. There are many researchers, or you say the experts, language experts, who talk about how language can be improved through literature, right? So now Stopford Brooke has given his observation, and we are supporting our statements with the help of the statements given by the researchers, pioneers in the research, the theorists in the research. So again, Clent Brooks, John Thibault Purser, and Robert Penn Warren. So these are the again some of the important language experts who also mentioned about literature and language. So literature gives us a picture of life, not the picture that is actually true, but a picture that has its own kind of truth, a truth that includes important elements. That science from the very nature is supposed to leave out. So, how literary text will help us to understand language, how it fosters the language skills in us, that is a code by this. So, this is all the theory behind it, literature and language, what the relationship, and who are the people who spoke about the interrelationships between language and literature. Then again, we will talk about the other researchers also and their statements. Brumfitt, CJ, and R.A. Carter in their book Literature and Language Teaching say that while using literary text for language development, linguistic and stylistic analysis with the tried and tested language teaching techniques such as types of questioning strategies, small group and pair activities, paraphrase, close call, and other aspects help the learners acquire the language abilities. So here, what are the opinions of these writers in their books? What did they write about language development through literature? How people can improve their questioning strategies, pair activities, and pair paraphrases. For close calls can also be designed based on the literary text, and they can be given to the students to improve their skills. So these are the opinions of these writers, right? Those who have spoken about literature and its relationship with the language. Then this is the research methodology. We can give a separate side heading as to how you have conducted the class. The paper attempts to show that literary texts are effective in the development of quality English in learners. For this, I have conducted an experiment on two groups, the control group and the experiment. So what experiment you have done, you will just describe about each and every aspect. Writing task on health hazards in 21st century was given. And after that, they were not given any words in the initial phase. They just were asked to write on their own whatever came to their mind. After reading the literary text, they have picked up a few words. The teacher consciously made an effort to make the learners exposed to such kind of vocabulary, and then they have used the same words again in the next writing, next activity. So the students have shown great ability in using the vocabulary quite effectively and correctly, because they have made use of these terms which they have picked up from the literary text. Like you have the words like eye for detail, wondrous and edifying tales, monstrosity of the situation, sun up to sundown, etc. So these are the words that they were exposed to, and the teacher gave an instruction that they have to use any of these terms which they have learned in the next write-up, right? In the initial phase, they did not use any new terms like this, but afterwards, after reading the text, they were asked to consciously use these in the right context. So they have shown some improvement. So here, this is the data analysis pre-test. Before the actual experiment was conducted, a test was conducted, and then For that activity, around 6 out of 10 were given for student 1, 7 out of 10 for student 2, like that. We call the students as subjects over here. So this is a paragraph writing, as I have mentioned, like the health hazards of 21st century, that paragraph was given to them. And then experimental group, this group was again given some other task with the help of some words, and then they have scored like this. This is a pre-test, and then post-test. After the test, there is some change in the average of the group, experimental group. See, they have scored 8 marks, 9 marks, 8. So in the initial phase, they did not score much, right? So these are the observations made. You can just record all your observations in this form. This is a very simple survey. You can also draw pie diagrams, bar graphs, and you can include lots of data. Then these are the observations. After conducting the experiment, what are the observations? The experimenter feels that the students have improved their language skills. The students expressed some problems. So while they were doing the activity, they expressed some problems, but they had to make a conscious effort to remember the words and to understand the context, how to use those words initially. Later, it was easy for them to understand it. So we can choose some simple text to complex ones. Instead of using the complex text where language is very tough, we can also use some simple texts wherein the English is easy to understand. So what are the outcomes of the experiment? You can also give a side heading like this. So the results of the pre-test and post-test show that there is considerable language development from the initial to the final stage. So the experimental group showed greater abilities in using more literary expressions compared to the control group. So only the experimental group was given the chance to read the text and use the terms in their writing. The control group was not given a chance. So they did not show any kind of improvement. So this experiment basically was conducted to show that after reading the text, definitely their writing skills, their vocabulary enhancement will be possible. Then these are the suggestions and recommendations. After conducting the experiment, what are the suggestions that you would want to give? So if anybody wants to do the same kind of research in their classrooms, so what can they follow when they conduct it once again? So more literary text, short stories, excerpts from novels, newspaper clippings can be used as resources for promoting greater language abilities. This is observation number 1 or suggestion number 1. Then suggestion number 2 is they can use R.K. Narayan's short stories, Ruskin Bond's stories, or R.K. Lakshman's, because they are written for children and the language is also simple and easy to understand. So these are some more suggestions. Graded text in which the vocabulary is simple and easy to understand. Graded texts are like, you know, the abridged versions. Like you have Abdul Kalam's Wings of Fire. The original version is also there. Again, we have the abridged version wherein the essential points are written. So the language would also be simple in those graded texts. Then the teacher can jot down the words and phrases related to a particular topic and ask the students to write paragraphs, essays related to it using the suggested phrases. So teacher's role is to just jot down all these words. Then we can also go for multiple choice questions. Speaking activities can be conducted. Listening tasks can also be conducted. So these are the various suggestions that the researcher or the paper presenter has to give. And these are the references. So here we need to write the references. Whatever books we have referred to, we need to write them over here. So we include the page numbers, include the publication details, etc., in which year it was published, and what is the name of the publication, the Oxford University Press 1986. So names of the authors like this, and title of the book in italics. We have discussed in the previous video as to how we have to write the references, right? So this is the paper that I have used for making all of you understand how we can write a research paper with various side headings. So to just give a quick recap, we will just go again. This is the title, details of the person who has written the paper, and then abstract. Then we have the keywords or the phrases, introduction, then literature and language, the difference between these two, then all the background study related to it, research methodology, what exactly have you done in your class, what is the experiment that you have conducted, then data analysis using some tables and charts and figures. Then we have the observations while doing the experiment or while conducting the study, and what were the observations made by the teacher, then outcomes of the experiment, what are the outcomes, what are the suggestions and recommendations, and finally the references. So hope you have understood how you can write a research paper in the field of ELT. Thank you for watching.